Hello, welcome to Stumble Upon. I'm Austin.
And I'm Emily. And in today's episode, we're going to discuss Anna Biller's The Love Witch. As always, there will be spoilers and plenty of swearing. But if that doesn't scare you, then grab some popcorn and put on something comfy so we can discuss witches in cinema.
Emily, would you like to give a brief synopsis of the film?
Why, yes, I would love to. Anna Biller's The Love Witch is about a modern-day witch who uses spells and magic to get men to fall in love with her, with deadly consequences. So The Love Witch is an awesome, campy film that is really pulling from the pulp stories of the 1960s.
Yeah, specifically I would say like giallo films of the late 60s and early 70s, and a whole bunch of like it feels very, very much of an era that films are no longer made from.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really fun. It's so beautiful. Her designs are incredible. But Austin, what struck you most when you watched the film the first time?
Well, I think the first time I watched it, we were watching it in a snowstorm in a cabin, and it was just the most kind of weird experience. Like, it was just like the film is so like can be really, really abrasive, I think, because it's so much style. There's so much like presentational style. It's almost like deliberately putting you at an arm's distance from the text of the film. It's trying, like, the acting, the writing, the costuming, all of which that Anna Biller does, keeps the film at this sort of precipice of artifice over feeling. And yet, I think the more that I've watched it, the more feeling I get out of the film, the more I feel tied to an emotional arc. And that's something that I think is quite remarkable that the film does, which is have that layer of depth that lives within it, even though there is this intentional artifice that is keeping you at arm's length from everybody and every character in the film.
It's like a shotgun blast of color and specificity.
And it's like, I think the thing that strikes me now about it is how clearly designed the film is. And I don't mean that just in like how like production design or anything of that nature. I think of it as a structural design for the film itself. Like the story starts off with Elaine driving away from the last place that she lived, which coincides with her murdering her husband. And the shot that we see is a shot of her face with a back projection of the road as she's driving her sports car down a scenic route in California. And just like we're being told in narration by Elaine why she had to leave, and it's clearly upon like second viewing and even depth of viewing of the first viewing, it's really, really clear that she's lying, or that she's holding something back about what happened with her first husband.
That she's holding something back from the audience.
Yes. Or that she's even holding something back from herself. Like it's part of the artifice that I speak of, like this sense of this character is incredibly unreliable. And she's wonderful because of that. And she's also really engaging because of that. And if you look just once you've seen the film, if you look at that opening and you look at the end, a lot of films are about how a character goes through a transition over time and makes an arc and becomes somebody different. And I don't really think Elaine becomes anybody different.
Absolutely not.
Like, I think she does and affects people's lives to make their lives differently. Obviously, the people she murders, their lives are different.
Slightly.
And the people that she becomes friends with are different as well.
She changes everyone's life around her but her own.
Right. And so it's really interesting to look at this film and see at the very beginning a shot, like a 3/4 shot of her head just driving. And then at the end, she's on a bed, and it's a very similarly framed shot with her holding is it his heart or just a bloody knife?
Well, she's holding the bloody knife, but she's looking at the painting of the woman who's stabbed what we assume is her lover.
A painting she made.
Oh, yes. All those paintings are hers.
Yeah.
So she very much is like recreating all is she recreating all the paintings in her apartment?
I don't know.
I'll have to go back and watch again to
yeah.
see if that's been like a tip of the hat through the whole film. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. That final scene, she's like getting to embody her ideal.
Mm-hmm. And it's not even an ideal that she says. It's like a subconscious ideal because she talks openly to other characters as well as in her own narration about how she just wants love. She just wants love.
Well, she wants love. She wants a man to love her the way she loves them. Mm-hmm. So is she actually looking for someone to murder her too?
Maybe. I hadn't really thought about that. I kind like, but she murders these people. Like she murders all of the men in this film through her, like up until the last. It's through the potions that she makes. She poisons them with a love potion, and that she decries them for being weak and getting all up in their feels, and that they're just
the feels she demands them get into.
Right. That she is so
hypocritical.
I was unaware. Also, like do you think that she's aware of what's going on and what she's doing to these people? Like, do you think she's actually aware, or is her actions just kind of reactions to the scenarios that she finds herself? So, like, to talk quickly, the first man that we meet that she murders is this guy named Wayne.
Good old Wayne.
Who is a college professor who's flirting with a student, and that
a self-described libertine.
Yes, that all Elaine has to do is look at him, and he comes over to her and leaves the girl that he was talking to and starts and goes to a cabin that he owns with her. He doesn't need any prompting whatsoever, other than her just looking and being like, "Hey, I'm new in town. Want to go to your cabin?
Found out about.
I'll make you dinner."
Yes, I love her idealized version of what it means to be the perfect partner, I guess. Because she's not looking to be anybody's wife, I don't think.
Well, even if she is looking, like, her perfect relationship.
Her perfect heteronormative relationship.
Yeah.
Is, I think, cooking steak and a little bit of greens on the side, wine, and then murder.
Also, very, her interest in sex, like, just seems to be lay there.
Yeah, she's not really engaged.
She just, like, they have sex with her. She doesn't seem to be, like,
participating.
I really want to have sex with you. Like, she just kind of lays there.
But she does like a good striptease.
Yes.
She's into that.
She does like a good striptease, and she does like a good kind of awkward modern dance that is also apparently incredibly alluring. It's like her dance sequences are fascinating. I love them, and they're just like they remind me of a giallo film that we watched. What was it called? Death Walks on High Heels, I think.
Yes. With that really complicated and not okay scene.
Yeah, but it also is like it has this dance sequence that, like, the dancing in that film.
The striptease.
Yes, the striptease in that film is so awkward and weird. Like, it looks like a person who has never danced before or has never used their legs properly before.
Yes.
It is just all like hard edges, and like it seems like she's trying to dislocate hips intentionally.
I feel like it was choreographed by a person who was pulled in off the street and was like, "Hey, can you choreograph this striptease?" And the person was like, "I mean, I've never done it before, but let's see."
Yeah,
then they did, and they were like, "Let's record it and also make it racist."
Yeah, and we only got one take. Let's do it.
One take.
Yeah. But, like, so Elaine, like, she's really fascinating because, like, I'm not, having watched it a few times, like, I am still not sure what I'm supposed to make of her, like, textually.
Do you think she is using potions, like, of the mind to attract them, like using her eyes as some kind of spell on them? Or would you say she's attracting them initially simply by looking?
Yeah.
Do you think that Anna Biller is trying to say within the film that Elaine is just making herself available and therefore men are just like, we can't help ourselves? Or do you think there's a magic happening there?
I think it's probably both. I think Anna Biller is inviting us to believe what you just said, especially with the first shot, with her sitting in a car, wind blowing on her hair, her lighting a cigarette, just like...
It's so easily lighting a cigarette.
Yeah, in
a convertible.
In a convertible that's driving on the highway. Like, she's just... Like, she's there to be looked at as the first thing you see. And because of it being a back projection as she's driving, it's really clear that that's a falsity behind her. Mm-hmm. And so
don't believe anything you see.
Right. It's saying that there's falseness behind her. Like, even though, and I fucking love this, that in that scene where she's driving at the beginning of the film and she's driving and behind her a cop car drives up and starts flashing its lights and she pulls over, and then we go to location where she pulls over and the cop who later becomes her last love interest walks up and tells her that her taillight is out, but he's not going to give her a ticket, and he walks back to his car. So they went to location. They had the opportunity to film in that way, and yet they chose to do this back projection at the beginning. And that's something that I love about the artifice of this. She chose to make these scenes look the way they did, and that makes all of these choices for who Elaine is and how I feel about her really, really interesting, because there's an element of going, of seeing it and going, this is a choice. This isn't happenstance. This isn't naturalistic. This isn't just like the best mumblecore version of this scene that we happened to get. It's, I'm fucking making this choice. It might be strange, off-putting, a little bit artificial, but all of that is going to add to my understanding. And it's something that I think that Anna Biller has done intentionally in the film. And I think that's something that you really, that struck you about this, like just her general kind of control and authorship of the film.
Yes. What struck me most about Anna Biller's The Love Witch is the authorship of it. It is so very clearly her vision. As you briefly mentioned earlier, she wrote and directed it. She costume designed it. Like, she physically made the costumes. She did the makeup. She did the set design. Mm-hmm. She, in fact, calls it her autobiography, which is really exciting to think that she's a murderer. And she made a movie about murdering, and everybody's like super cool with it.
Yeah, this is great. It toured everywhere.
Yeah, everybody's like, no, cool. Like, if you're going to make great art, well, I mean, murder whoever you have to. It's fine. Yeah. So we do have some questions for her about the autobiographical element of it. But no judgment.
Maybe judgment.
No, maybe a little bit.
Yeah,
it's probably not a great idea. But if you have to do research to prepare your great masterpiece, she won't be the last. But I loved her use of, I think there's so many elements of her work that I think were really beautiful. And you're right, it isn't a naturalistic film. Every actor had to buy into this really specific style of performance.
Yeah.
It was really exciting how, they all were bringing in an extra level of energy. And I think on first viewing, if you're not ready to watch a piece like this, it's going to be really shocking and confusing.
Yeah, it feels at times like advanced film compared to like just like seeing a shitty blockbuster like Dune or something.
Yeah, or
a Marvel film.
Any Marvel film. Thank you.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
So yes, this is sort of a masterclass in watching cinema. But also, if you are willing to just have your mind open and relax and just let it be what it is without asking it to be something else, it's going to surprise you and delight you because there's so much to chew on.
Yeah.
Like Elaine, when you watch this, everything is a specific choice. Do not think it's a mistake. So, like, some of the things that I love are her use of colors.
Yeah.
It's so clear and specific. We were talking about Romero and the amazing design of Romero's like very 1973 piece, Season of the Witch. And that is wonderful. And it, yes, I did mention before that it reminded me of embassy housing. I was a diplomat growing up. My parents were diplomats, and I got to live in a lot of really cheesy embassy housing that was very much designed in that way. But because it was an accident, because it was like 15, 20 years before we got there, and it was still styled that way. But this stuff, I mean, the Love Witch, Anna Biller's piece is so beautiful. Like the colors are so rich.
Yeah.
They're the richest red and the richest purple and the richest yellows.
And I love, like, I love the anachronisms. You're talking about there's not a mistake in that kind of design. Like, you could watch the film and be like, so she's driving this really beautiful red sports car. And when she first drives up to the house that she's going to be living in for the duration of the film, you can see on the street that they're just like Beamers from the early teens just sitting there on the street. And you're like, what the fuck is that?
Like a Honda Civic.
Yeah,
I think her
like-
friend shows up in a Honda Civic.
You're like, what the fuck, man? Like, you have this beautiful design, and then there's normal cars? Like, how the fuck? And I think that, I really do think that that is a purposeful choice on her behalf to accept the reality of filming on a low budget, in a low budget world, and say, it's fine to be anachronistic here because it'll pop her. It's going to make the Love Witch herself. It's going to make Elaine special because she is unique in this world rather than just everybody else. She's actually unique. Her powers of making love potions kill people. They're not, like, she's not maybe a really good witch. Like not in like tone good, but as in like she's not good at her craft.
Well, she's successful at her craft if her craft is murder.
Yes, but that's not what she, like, again,
But it's not her stated goal.
It gets to the point of going, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to make of her. Am I supposed to think that she's a competent person in what she's doing? Is she incompetent to the point that she's killing people? Like, is she intending to murder people? Is she not intending? Like,
Should the title be The Incompetent Love Witch?
it would be a much worse title.
It wouldn't roll off the tongue.
The Love Witch works really, really well. So I think it got the right title. But, like, even in that, like think about love in how it's presented in film a lot of times. It is incredibly messy. So that, and in life, in that, The Love Witch is a really good title because love is incomplete. It's messy. Like, you fuck it up every once in a while. You have no idea. And maybe that's an element of the film that really does work towards its own thesis of it's just like love is fucked up, and when somebody goes too far into it, they get crazed or they die or they lose themselves.
But also, you're saying that there's anachronisms. There's the Honda Civic next to her amazing sports car and her very styled 1960s like showcase of the world. But then it's not like she goes into a regular store. She goes into a restaurant, the Victorian Tea Room, that is like wildly, bizarrely styled in Victorian-esque looks. Like, it's very right now, but also then. So with this contrast, that's interesting to bring back to what you were saying about, is she successful or not at her potion? She kills people, but controlling love naturally is a messy process. So definitely, if you bring in the element of making your selections of people, irregardless of what they feel, is going to have negative impacts because you can't ask to control other people's feelings.
Right. And that's,
so maybe that's why she's choosing to have this kind of.
Yeah. And it's something that what you're saying is backed up in that exact scene when she goes to the Victorian tea room, which, on an aside, I really want to say, it seems like a Jean Rollin fever dream. Like, with all these like gorgeously white dressed nightmares of people just like standing around. Like, it's like
It is a nightmare.
like, it's this weird, like, maybe Rollin,
everything's made with dairy for sure.
your nightmare, or even like a Jess Franco type of weirdness. Like, just like, it's strange. All these people would not be dressed in this way in a normal situation. But to get to my main point about this, about your messiness, when she goes to the tea room, she goes with her new friend Trish, who has given her the keys to the apartment that she's staying in the house
That she designed.
And her husband, Trish's husband, Richard shows up, and Richard is also struck just by Elaine's look. And so in that regards, his love, which Trish goes on about, is questioned in the first time that you meet him. And love, again, becomes kind of messy. And and less than clear in that very brief moment. We all look at it like it's really easy to look at it in a very puritanical manner and go, oh, he just wants to fuck Elaine, so obviously he's a cheater. But it's a very complicated sort of understanding of what he sees in Elaine, which is also what we're supposed to see in Elaine, versus what he sees in his wife, Trish, who is dressed in like very Victorian, like buttoned up to her neck. If it could be buttoned up to her chin, she would be buttoned up to her.
She's kind of going like 50s.
Yeah.
Where Elaine is more 60s, 70s.
Right. And there's a scene,
I guess goes to your puritanical concepts.
yeah, and there's a scene later with Trish that I absolutely fucking love.
But the percolator coffee?
No. The scene where she tries on Elaine's clothing.
Oh, yes, at the end. That's awesome.
And she puts on Elaine's wig and she strips down to her lingerie and she's dressed up like Elaine for a little bit, feeling herself in Elaine's apartment until she discovers that at that point that Elaine did have an affair with her husband, and that was the reason that her husband killed himself. But in that moment of somebody trying on Elaine's world and trying on who Elaine presents to be, we see through another character who has been incredibly pent up throughout the rest of the film, a freedom that is immediately rejected upon gaining more knowledge. It's a fascinating scene, I think, because of how much she is feeling herself. She's posing. She's posing in the mirror with the looks. She puts on her lipstick, which is always something that creeps me out.
It's an interesting, what you're pointing out is a problem, a situation within the heteronormative female experience in general. It's this constant, we're being told constantly that we need to be desired, and if we're not desired, we're no longer seen. Mm-hmm. And so Trish lost her husband to suicide, and then on top of it, he had been rejecting her for a while, and she knew he was having an affair. So here's Elaine, who's being seen by everyone and being desired by everyone. She's trying it on to see how it fits her, if she likes it, and what does that feel like? So do you think she's feeling herself, or do you think she's trying to feel power in general? And then her discovery is that her friend betrayed her, and everything is shattered.
I think both things can be true. I think that she is feeling herself because like she's trying on a different persona, which is also just something that we as humans get to do. Like we get to try different versions of ourselves all the time with new people and how we describe ourselves. But also, I think there's an element of needing and wanting to be seen. Like all of her scenes, like specifically the scene right before this is when she talks to Elaine about the fact that her husband committed suicide, and how when they first met at the scene takes place at the Victorian tea house again, and how the first time they met, they had one conversation and now they're flipped. And because they're flipped, I think that leads to their positions in life are flipped. Elaine has a boyfriend at this time, the cop from earlier in the film, who she doesn't remember as the person who pulled her over. They both say, I think I've seen you before, but they don't, at least not on screen, do they ever put it together. Mm-mm. But Trish says to Elaine that they're in different positions. And then Trish immediately puts on Elaine's clothing and then immediately rejects it when she sees what that is.
What it means.
Yeah.
But also she's seeing the toxicity of Elaine. Mm-hmm. Not only that she betrayed her husband, but she betrayed herself. Like there's so much toxicity to Elaine. She's cruel to everyone. Mm-hmm. There is no one, I don't think, that she's honest with.
No.
In this film. Maybe her coven. But even them, she doesn't seem to really like. She's dancing. Everyone else is naked and doing that final coven dance. And she's fully clothed. It's like she's always on the edges of it.
Yeah. And the guy who runs the coven,
he's such a creep.
He's such a creep. And he's presented as a creep. He's always moist. Somehow somehow he is always moist.
Ooh, that's so gross. He is always damp.
I would really love to see the script and just see his name and then is moist as a description.
The damp coven leader.
Yeah. And he's also really lecherous and creepy. Like he's flirting with all the women in his coven in an incredibly unappealing and unwarranted way. And this is also to say that in all those scenes with the covens, there's full frontal nudity for both men and women in that. And that's not creepy. It's only this fucking guy who's just moist and awful.
Yeah, and fully clothed. He's a creeper.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny that we're pointing out what much of a moist creep he is when Elaine is killing people.
Yeah.
But
he's
the creep.
It comes down to the fact that she's not moist.
She's not damp. she is dry.
Yeah. She's a dry creeper.
She's a creepy creeper. But okay, so circling back to something you said a bit earlier about the Victorian tea room, it had Jean Rollin inspo. Like what films do you see Anna Biller pulling from? Where do you see some of the stuff coming from? You mentioned Giallo. What else did you see?
Like I see, like, in a lot of ways, I see like the films of Sergio Martino, like his Giallo output in the early 70s. Her dress, Elaine's dress and kind of look has this really wonderful Edwidge Fenwick look.
Why don't you explain a little bit of the Giallo films? What are they?
Sure. Giallo films are mystery horror films from the late 60s to mid 70s that were mostly coming out of Italy. There are a whole bunch of them. Sergio Martino is a really good director of them. Dario Argento made some really famous ones with Suspiria and Bird with the Crystal Plumage. And mostly they're just mysteries. Like the Giallo means yellow, and they were based off of these kind of pulpy yellow novels. Yellow being the color of the cover, not any sort of anything else.
Yellow binding.
Yeah, and so they just made these films that were
exploitation.
Exploitation. There's like a lot of the funding for these films came from doing like travelogue versions of films where they would go, so we're doing this Italian-Spanish co-production, so we're going to shoot it on the coast of Spain. So this will be the most beautiful film with boobs and blades. And they're nicknamed Boobs and Blades because there are always boobs and there are always blades.
If there aren't boobs, then why are we here?
Yeah, why are we here? And so there's like they're the best of them are really fun. They're intricate. They always have really good narrative twists. There were a bunch that were written by a guy named Gestaldi, and his films, his group of films out of those always make sense, which is something that sometimes these type of thrillers, these murder mystery thrillers, don't. You feel like there's curveballs and things from left field all over the place. And his films, while having that, they're all rooted in character, which is really fascinating. And that's something that I do see tied to The Love Witch in a lot of ways, because this film is a 2-hour film, and there is a lot of different structural things that happen in it. It doesn't, it feels like it could be a shorter film at any time, but never does it feel like it overstays its welcome.
Absolutely.
Like
it could be a series of shorts.
Yeah.
But it is something to chew on as a complete piece. You don't feel like there's nothing that you need to trim. Everything is there for a purpose, and it feels really rewarding to get to see the whole thing.
Yeah, and I would also say that it even though I've commented on the fact that I feel that there's a lot of artifice in it, I feel like all the characters are given proper weight. They don't feel like they're just stick figures or props. Like even the characters that are kind of less fleshed out, like
the twins, or the female cop who just makes Griff his black coffee, who is just like that actor. She is fucking phenomenal. Worked so hard on that bit. Yep. She did a great job.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved all the little side characters. Yeah. I loved the detective scene in the police station. Like it felt like, what did we just get transported to, like a Dick Tracy movie? Like what is happening between the chiseled jaw and his detective
Yeah.
who's still on the case, damn it.
Yeah, Griff, who is the head cop who falls in love with the Love Witch at the end, for the second half of the film.
So
this
good.
man has the most incredible chin I have ever seen.
Yeah.
Like his chin is
Chiseled.
just fucking granite.
It's chiseled out of fucking stone.
Yeah.
It is gorgeous and confusing. And then to end up at a Ren fair
Yep.
that just happens to be where they were riding horses in the woods of her coven.
That is so great. Like
It was amazing. It was like, was that her strategy or was it legit just a stumble upon?
and does it matter? Just to fucking wander into a Ren fair with your own coven while you're riding white horses.
And then you
what
get
is
me.
going on?
Everything is going on in her life that's amazing. I was here for it, and I'm jealous.
Yep.
Because I haven't been to a Ren fair, and I feel like I'm missing out on my life.
Yeah.
Especially if it's with everybody you know and love.
Yeah. So I have another question for you, which
Hit me.
I haven't which
Hit me with your best shot.
which I haven't told you about. Do you think that Elaine gets what she wants at the end?
Well, she doesn't go to jail.
As far as we know. But like in that last shot, in the world that we know of the film.
That's a great question, and I don't know that she does, but I don't know that she doesn't, because she does look up and look at the painting that she made of like holding your lover's heart in your hands, and there was always that tarot card she kept pulling with the 3 knives in the heart.
Yep.
And she did stab him, I think 3 times. So maybe she was manifesting her reality the whole time.
Maybe it strikes me as we were talking that she might get exactly what she wanted in this film. Like, she might not want... Well, let me restate that. She might get exactly what she wanted. A man dead next to her while she's holding a knife that's bloody. That might be the perfect result of her life. Like,
Well,
she
yeah.
might be purely realized in this.
I mean, maybe this is just always what she wants. She wants to fall in love, because that's the fun part. That's the butterflies.
Yeah.
And then when she gets bored with them, she literally discards them. Whether she has to herself by digging their own grave, which apparently wasn't a big deal for her because she's done it before.
Yep.
And then leaving her DNA everywhere,
Right.
bottled
Yeah.
to perfection
Yeah.
for the detectives.
Yeah. Literally bottling her tampon and leaving it on top of the grave.
I loved the witch bottle.
Yeah.
I loved it so much.
Yeah.
And I love that you pointed out that it was her pee in the bottle, her urine, had no menstrual blood in it.
Yep.
But don't worry, her tampon was going to get shoved in there that was full of menstrual blood. And it was just like, girl, you are not peeing without any menstrual blood coming out.
Yeah,
Don't you play with me.
I was wondering if when they were doing that scene, if she was like, the censors are going to be okay with pee and a tampon, but they might not be okay with blood in the urine as a representation of a period.
Would that have made it an X?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I wonder if there was a cut where she was like, "Oh, let's try it," and then maybe it was too dark, and people were like, "What is she peeing?" And like,
Is she dying?
Like, what is happening?
People forget about menstruation.
Yeah, they're like, I don't understand it. I've never been around a woman in my life. I can't possibly conceive of what happens with their bodies.
Can we take a second all to appreciate how Elaine peeled the tampon wrapper off of the tampon? It was the funniest shit I'd ever seen. When she very delicately took it apart. I was like, what is happening?
Yeah,
I loved it.
It was not an urgent tampon by any means. It's like, no. We'll get there. Like, I don't want to damage anything.
Maybe she's a slow bleeder.
Yeah, she's like,
Maybe she really revels in the tampon.
I don't mind if people die, but if my tampon is not perfectly unwrapped, that shit goes in the trash.
Well, Elaine, you do you.
Yeah.
That was amazing. I loved it. So I highly recommend the film to everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone watch it. Get your hand watching it 3 times.
Yeah,
Don't just watch it once.
It used to be on Amazon. It's now on. It's not now on Arrow, the Arrow player.
Yeah.
If you have
Just poke around, you'll find it.
Yeah, it's both of the films actually are on. Both of the films that we talked about on this episode or episodes are on the Arrow player.
The Arrow player is excellent if you love horror
Yeah.
and slashers
Yeah.
and thrillers
Yes. And
things from the 1970s.
and really, really obscure like knockoffs of Friday the 13th, which are actually kind of more interesting than Friday the 13th because they're done by people who don't really care about the story, but know that they have to make a film like this for their audience.
Do you know if Slumber Party Massacre is on Arrow?
Only Slumber Party Massacre 2 is on Arrow.
Oh, have we watched that yet?
We haven't yet.
Ooh,
But
well, we
it-
might stumble upon that one then.
But it does have, I've seen a bit from it where it has, the killer has a giant guitar and he has a dance sequence that's like 4 minutes long in the middle of the film.
Oh, is that one? The
Yeah.
one where it's like,
Yep.
it's like a rock star, but he's gonna murder everybody.
Yeah, rockabilly style.
Oh yes, I love rockabilly.
Yep.
Okay,
It's
we're
gonna-
definitely watching that.
It's going to be fucking weird.
We'll probably talk about that too.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about some stumble upons next.
Yeah.
Like, what are some recommendations that I'm going to make for anyone out there that's like, it's still the witchy season and I'm feeling my feels, so I want to think about that. Some recommendations that I have would be, of course, Practical Magic, which is an all-time fave, and Hocus Pocus, if for some reason you missed it. But if you want to dig in a little deeper and get something that has a little bit more grit to it, I'm going to definitely recommend Eve's Bayou. If you're feeling Louisiana heat, you should check out this film. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, that film is just... That film, I cannot wait for whoever to put it out on Blu-ray and do a restoration of that, because that film needs to be preserved and shown with any great Halloween series.
Yeah, we'll definitely do Eve's Bayou as a stumble upon in the future because
Yeah.
it's such a fun, incredible film to chew on.
Yeah.
Austin, what would you recommend to stumble upon?
Well, I stumbled upon a film by Sarah Jacobson recently called I Was a Teenage Serial Killer. It's a 25-minute short, and it's fucking awesome. Like, it was made in the 90s. It's in black and white. It's fucking wonderful. Like, it's basically a woman who just keeps murdering men who are either catcalling her or being like sexually aggressive with her, or any kind of disregard to her right for space. She murders people over, which
Rightly so.
I can't say that I disagree with her choices, at least as presented in the film.
Yeah, if you like The Love Witch, you're going to like I Was a Teenage Serial Killer.
Yeah.
It's very DIY punk, like Riot Girl, think, Bikini Kill,
Yeah.
Inspo, West Coast, Pacific Northwest vibes.
Yeah.
Like super 90s, fantastic.
Yeah.
You should like have a zine in your hand and have been screaming Mannequin Pussy. No, sorry, Mannequin Pussy is now.
Yeah.
Screaming Bikini Kill songs and just kind of get into your own 90s grunge vibe before you watch the movie.
Yeah, and the other thing that I kind of recently stumbled upon was the collected works of Andy Milligan, he's a filmmaker from, I think, the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Go on.
I've only watched one of his films right now, the Ghastly Ones, and I'm just kind of slowly making my way through a set of his films, and they're unique. Like, it's strange because I want to say in the most positive way possible that they're not incredibly well made, but they are really well constructed for what he was able to do. And I know that he had no money to make these films, so these are fucking labors of love, and they are dark, and they're hard, and they're violent, and they're strange. And if you find yourself wanting to go down a rabbit hole and see somebody who makes film because they couldn't do anything fucking else, this is kind of a guy to track that with.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I will happily watch those with you.
Yeah. Well, you
I know we already did.
yeah. Well, you might also just happen into them happening around you as
I
well.
just walk into the room and there it is.
Yeah,
So I'll watch it too.
There you go. So yeah, I think that that's great. So thank you very much for spending some time with us.
Thank you.
And listening to us chat about two films that are fucking awesome: Season of the Witch and The Love Witch.
And if you'd like to know more about what's coming up next, we'll post it in our Instagram stories. You can follow us on Instagram at Fishtown Films. We make independent cinema. So if you want to learn more about what we make, we'll definitely be talking about it later on down in the podcast line. But also you can always reach out to us in the comments or slide into our DMs and tell us what you think or make any recommendations of what you want us to talk about.
Yeah.
And we'll post up what we're going to watch next so you can watch it a little bit ahead of time and then chat with us about it.
Yeah. Thank you again for your time.